Bruchim hab. I have to say like something hello for Torah anytime. Want to start again? No. Oh, they edited it, okay. No, right, okay. That part of the gig, I supposed to, they used to ask me to do that, or not here. No, Torah used to say, always start off saying, okay. Well, you say, yeah, okay, very good. Got it all official. All right. A good devach. This is a little bit political, this title, because I feel like this is sort of one of the sugyas that really divides even the Frum Kehillah today. There are different kufas, different times, there are different issues that are at the forefront of what thinking people are struggling with. This issue is the issue of opposing values of tamimus, innocence, keeping kids away from learning things and knowing, not just kids, adults, versus the competing idea that Yiddishkeit is about breakkeit. Kodesh Baruch created Bria, and we say the Goyish world, they're all locked up in their basements playing games, and we live in the Welt that Hashem created, and we don't feel like we have to hide from reality. When I was in yeshiva, the mashal they always used for the world of Torah is that the world is a mabel, and yeshiva is the teva. And you run away from the mabel, you float in the teva, safe from the storms, and cozy in this little, in the teva. And basically you have to know how to close your eyes, you know when to close your ears and not to see, to escape a world of shmutz and of ra and of taiva and hashchasa and the world of the mabel. And we created a little safe place, the Olam HaTorah, the Dal Amashal Halacha, and that's what the teva is. That's one attitude. Then there's the other attitude that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created us with eyes and ears, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted Adam and Chava to be in the Gan, and the image of Kedusha was Adam and Chava, the Kavshua, to conquer the Gan, to live in the Gan, to tend to the Gan. And instead, what did they do? They ended up curled up, hiding in the bushes in the Gan, like in a fetal position. So, are we supposed to be hiding from the larger world in a safe, cozy place without being exposed to the nachash and the sounds of the nachash and the words of the world? Or are we supposed, in that image, in the image of the Gan, the ultimate evil, the ultimate ra, was receding from the Gan and separating from the Gan? And the sadness is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created a magnificent world. And here you are, I gave you a bria that's total hatava, total pleasure, total oineg and tainug. And instead, what are you doing? You were curled up in bushes, missing out on my matana. So in the image of the Gan, the beginning of Torah, the picture of Kedusha and Tara is the opposite of the musig of the Teva and the Am. The larger world is the goal, and escape to this little ghetto, this little walled-in area is a terrible tragedy. A few parshas later, you get to Noach, and it's a whole different world. The world isn't the Gan, the world's a Mabel. And the world's a Mabel, then you want to recede. These are ideas that maybe started with the image of the Gan and the image of the Mabel, but they're more prevalent today. It is the goal of life to live as much as you can in the world. And the more restrained and closed in we are, is that a tragedy? Or is the goal to be pure and tahar and to survive 120 years without becoming tainted, without being corrupted, and therefore to miss out on whatever's out there is a very worthwhile expense to pay in the struggle of preserving the purity of the neshama. What is the ultimate goal? And these are the debates that really divide Kehillas today, and even in the Haredish world, the pure Torah world. These are subtle things. People who are more concerned with safety and protection, and people who are more concerned with the openness, deals with issues of Limudei Chayil in yeshivas. How much Limudei Chayil? Should we be learning nothing secular? How much secular? And then issues with technology. Should we be having computers? Should we be having internet? Or should totally get rid of all of it? In order to answer these questions, you really have to wrap your head around what is the pure Torah outlook of what is the priority? What is the goal? Is there a way to create a balance? Is there value in the balance? Do you want to be extreme to one side or the other side? This is what this year is about. I called it innocence versus sophistication. There's a lot of ways you could describe it. I chose that way because it's the most simple way to understand the argument. There are other ways to say it. Innocence is, again, the idea that we maintain Tara. If the holiest value is innocence, so if the value is innocence, then you want walls, big walls, to protect anything from getting in. If you want sophistication, you want to be nuanced, you want to be expansive and large, then the walls are the opposite of what you want. You want bridges. You want to figure out, how can I go to new places? How can I figure out how to expand? I call it bridges versus walls. That's the image. And that we're going to probe over here what the answer is. I think the Torah's approach is fascinating. And I think it makes shalom between all the ideas. Not that there won't be machlokes after I say it, because there is machlokes, and the people leading the different movements know everything I'm saying. So it's not like I'm telling them a chiddush. I just want you to share that we can wrap our heads around what the machlokes is and the l'shem shemayim aspects of all of the different shittas. At least not all of them. Not everybody's always l'shem shemayim, but it's possible to be l'shem shemayim on both sides of the debate. And this is where we're going to go now. So I want to do it in two ways. I want to first start with a certain image. Akev Tishmon. The word Akev means a heel. Yaakov is called Yaakov because he's Oiches Ba'akev Esav. And the idea of Esav, what is the Akev? If you had to describe what an Akev is, the Akev is, it's the part of the guf that is probably the hardest part of the guf. I don't know how much I should get into it. I always want to bite off more than I can chew, and I end up having charot after because they rushed me to they stand by the door 2 minutes and I can't finish it. Maybe we'll come back to it. Let's just lay that for now. I wanted to start thinking about the idea of an Akev. An Akev is the problem with an Akev is I want to use it as the metaphor for the entire shir. The benefit of an Akev is I'm going to say the whole thing. It'll be clear, and I'll take my risk. Yaakov and Esav were supposed to be partners. Yaakov is the Ish Tam Yoshev Holam. He was the simple, pure man who lived in the tents. Esav was the Ish Soda, the man of the field, the Yodei Atzayid. This debate of what we're dealing with is really Yaakov versus Esav. And the answer at that stage in history wasn't Yaakov or Esav. They were Shnei Geim Bevitnech. They were twins. They were supposed to be shutfim. The world was supposed to be run by a partnership of Yaakov and Esav. There was such a thing as a duality of the Tamim, the pure, the innocent Yaakov in Koilel, and Esav out in the world, and somehow both messages would be accomplished. Unfortunately, what happened is Esav left, and he wasn't negea to the shutfis. He was doing his own thing, and you have a problem. If you're supposed to have a shutfis of the innocent guy and the sophisticated person, I use a mushal sometimes like you ever go shopping? There's a Best Buy. Best Buy. So Best Buy is it's an electronics store. Everybody buys. You have to buy electronics, kosher electronics. You don't sell Shabbos lamps, but maybe alarm clocks. Okay, whatever you want to buy. So there's two types of workers in Best Buy. There's the guys in the blue shirts. They're called whatever. And the guy in the black shirts. The black shirt guys are called the Geek Squad. They're the technical support. And then there's the blue shirt guys are all these sweet little kids. Sales, nice, friendly, warm. They don't know that much about the product, but they're nice talkers and they're warm, and you go to them and they're trained to answer 2 or 3 questions on each laptop or whatever it is that you're looking at. And if you have a really hard, if somebody comes in, they start asking real questions, they want to know some real stuff, and they bring you go to the Geek Squad, they take you to the Geek Squad, and the Geek Squad guy, he's the technician, he starts telling you numbers and stats and specs and all these things, but they're not salesmen. They're so you're hearing all the information, but you don't want to buy it anymore. We have problems with this model, and this model is this, and you're overwhelmed. It's 2 different people. There's a partnership of the best ideal world would be a person who can do sales and who knows the product at the same time. But there's a benefit to having this, because you have a guy whose whole life is sales. He becomes an unbelievable salesman. And then you have the guy whose whole life is the specs and the details and knowledge of the hardware and the software. So he's a mumch in that. And that's how it runs. Yaakov and Esav was supposed to be a similar arrangement. Yaakov was supposed to be the technical guy, the Ish Tom Yoshev Hom, learn Torah all day. And Esav was going to be the guy in the field, the salesman, the guy selling Torah. They had to work together. The mashal that Chazal used, the Sforim used to describe this, is similar to the mashal of a neshama and a guf. We're murkav, we're a combination of neshama and guf. The neshama is a soft, pure, holy part of us, and the world is a coarse, grubba world. How does the neshama walk, and affect things in a pure world? The neshama can't go into a physical, coarse world. So Hashem created a guf, and the neshama can express. The guf has capabilities to interact and walk in the world, but the guf is a physical thing. So if the neshama is in the guf, the neshama is the holy part. If the guf is taking orders from the neshama, then the neshama can affect the entire world as this medium. The mashal, the Sforim used for this, the easiest way to see it is a foot and a shoe. The neshama is the guf is called the na'al of the neshama, the shoe of the soul. Because what's the role of a shoe? A human being has a foot. The foot is very soft, and there's a hard world. There's pebbles and rocks and glass, and you can't walk in the world. You get hurt, but you need to go places. So we put a shoe on your foot, and the mela, now you can walk in the world, and you can accomplish things in the world. It's a very good mashal to understand the relationship of neshama and guf. The guf is the shoe of the soul. It's a conduit that allows you a pure you to perform in a coarse world. And that was the relationship of Yaakov and Esav. Yaakov and Esav was supposed to be the foot and the shoe. When Esav quits his job, so now we're left with a shoe, with a foot, without a shoe. And now you have no way to affect the world. You have all this Torah and all this gutzkeit and all this stuff to share, but there's no way to get it across. No one's going to listen to you. No one's interested. You're not a talker. You're not smooth. Esav is a sayyid v'peh. It's a hunter with his mouth. He's a salesman. He knows how to sell. So what is the answer in that problem, in that situation? What do if you're a shoe, a foot without a shoe, and there's a big world waiting for you? So what's the answer? The answer is a heel. An akev is a fascinating thing. An akev is where the foot itself learns how to adapt to a world that the foot itself can learn how to get hard and callous, and the foot can walk in a hard world. It's never going to be as good as a shoe. But there's a mila of an akev over a foot. A foot and a shoe is two things that combined have both roles. An akev is where the foot itself gets hard, right? The akev's the heel, it's calluses, can walk in the world. The Indians grew up in wear shoes. They walked around, you do it for enough years, you get hard feet, and nothing hurts you. You can run even, you can jump. That's why Yaakov is called the Akev. Yaakov is Oiches Ba'akev Esav. The idea that one person could be the Kol Yaakov and the Yedei Esav. You could be the Oyel and the Sada. You can do both. And that's what Yitzchok wants to give the brachas. When does Yitzchok comes over, we think he tricked him. It's obvious in the story he wasn't so tricked. He says, are you really my son Yaakov? Like the voice is the voice of Yaakov, and the hands, so he knew something was up. What it is that he's not saying that you're an imposter. He's saying, Adarabba, if the voice is the voice of Yaakov and the hands are the hands of Esau, it's gewaldig. That it's fine. I don't need to give the brachas to Esau. If Yaakov can figure out on how to have Yedei Esau, if Yaakov can figure out how to be the regel and the na'al, then that's the perfect world. That's the ideal. The ideal image, and you can understand the Mila. Imagine the Mila of a salesman who actually was a mumcha in the product. Then you can talk to the guy, he knows that I'm talking, and he knows. There's a concern, of course, is that if a guy's all day long does sales, and the guy all day long does technical support, so they're bigger mumchayim. But the guy who spends half the time doing both is a Mila in that. And that's the trade-off between the model that was supposed to be Yaakov and Esav to the final product of Yaakov himself, Oiches Ba'akev Esav, the role of the heel. So the role of the heel is some kind of coarseness that you develop that you can now walk in the world. I wanted to start off with that Muslim. There's a downside in an Akev. What's lost when in this adaptation, when if Yaakov was initially supposed to be this Ish Tam Yoshev Halam, no shaykhs to the world, like clueless, like just pure kol kulei Torah. You take a guy like that and you make him bakant with the world. You give him skills. He can be in Koil, but he knows how to go to Wall Street. He can walk around the Manhattan. So there's something lost, right? There's something lost. In the mashal of the heel, you see very clearly what's lost. What's lost when a foot develops calluses? What's lost when a foot is sensitivity. It doesn't feel anything. The maila of the heel is it doesn't feel anything, and the chesaron of the heel is it doesn't feel anything. And that's the shaila I think that I wanted to start the show with. It was a long way to do it. I should have just said it. We'll see if at the end I'm going to have charata. I did this whole introduction. But the idea is all this exposure, even if it's achievable? We're going to see there's 100 pitfalls in the way and dangers in doing this. But even if you can do it, isn't there something huge lost? Let's say we could go out there and be a tzaddik. Let's say you could be Yaakov and Esau, which probably you can't. It's so dangerous, the world. And even if somebody might have written the Sefer 100 years ago that it's possible, or we can show the Rambam did it, and other Rishonim did it, or Yosef HaTzadik in Mitzrayim did it. Even though there are cases in history where people were kol kulei Torah and kol kulei business and worldliness and exposure. Yosef was hu shalit hu mashbir, and he was the same ani Yosef kodesh v'tor, Yosef HaTzadik. If it's happened, and there's Yaakov. But even if you can show me that it's happened, doesn't mean today it's possible. And even if it's today possible, and even if you could tell me you could have a phone and filters and still there's something lost. And that's what is that even in the perfect world, foot loses sensitivity when it gets calluses. When it walks in the world, there's something huge lost. Torah doesn't, the Kadosh Baruch Hu didn't create the world for compromises. He created a world that we should have shleimus. So I want to know if it's not only if this isn't the sheer, is it technically possible to do both? Is it technically possible to do both and also end up with a shleimus? Because to do both and to lose, like even in English, they have an expression that when, I don't use it anymore, but in old books you read it, there's like expression when someone's kalt and you cheat someone or you take advantage of someone, even when it was allowed to do, you didn't break the law, but how can you do that to me? It's legal, but not fear. You call the guy a heel. Don't be a heel. It's Altersprach. No, a heel is a person. Why do they call him a heel? Because how can you be so non-feeling? How can you do that? It's actually what Yosef tells the brothers when the brothers come down to Mitzrayim, and he says Meraglim atem. He calls them spies. He has a whole mahalach. It's not the place to go through what he's trying to accomplish. But what is he saying when he says Meraglim atem? What Yosef is saying is that, you know what a spy is? What's a spy? A spy is like the lowest thing in the world. If you play Stratego, it's the weakest piece on the board. Anything can kill a spy, but a spy can do huge things. It's very important to us. What's so terrible about a spy? As a spy, he's working for his country. He's totally shemayim, whatever his country, his country. He's sincere. But he has to go into a country. He has to marry a woman. He has to have kids. He has co-workers. And it's all fake. It's all lies. He doesn't love her. He doesn't have to care about his kids. He doesn't care about his boss. It's all to get close to the country. You think about a spy, is he wrong? What do you mean? He's my country. Save my country. I didn't do this to hurt someone. I did this to save millions of people. My whole nation. We're in war. Yosef is saying to the brothers, you had good cheshbonis. I'm sure you sold me kol kul l'shem shemayim. Sure, it was totally ernst. But how could you do it? It should be impossible. You shouldn't be capable of selling your brother. You could say, I'm morid b'malchus, I'm going to become avodah zarah, I'm going to be the worst thing in the world. Maybe. But just because something's right doesn't mean you should be capable of doing it. It should be impossible to have kids and not love them. It should be impossible. If you could do that, you're spot meraglim atem. He's saying you're cult of people. You have your eyes so clear on what's right that you don't care enough. So sometimes perfection and kedusha has a loss. Meraglim atem. You could be the biggest tzaddik, but how can you be so cult? An Akev is very powerful. It's shamor, it's protected, but something's lost. I want to start to get a little real over here. This is how I explain this whole question, because this question is a question that comes up always when I used to work on college campuses. So this is always, the picture in the world is that from people is that that's the biggest obstacle for people, is that you don't care about the world, you don't care about knowledge, you don't want to know anything, you're so mitzumtzum. But I was able to be successful in college because I didn't have a long beard and I didn't wear, I worked for Eish HaTorah for a while, and their rule in Eish was that you have to wear colored shirts. I don't know if that's still the rule, because you don't want to scare the students. For the students, they already look at you different. Try and look as stelzu as most as possible. I lived in Lakewood, and I didn't want to. I didn't really wear colored shirts, not colored shirts. But I stelzu to my community. I don't want to be my parents. So this is what I'm doing. This is their hashkafa. They have gedolim and poiskim who tell them what they do. But I live in the Gila, so I remember every night I would come back from the campus. I'd be on Route 9 like 2 a.m, like changing my shirt. I dislocated my rotator cuff, and it still hurts today because it's the worst motion to do is changing a shirt while you're driving, lifting your arms to get the. Ow, that hurt. Okay, this is my life every single day. So the idea is that when going, I was able to work on campus because I was sort of the normal cool rabbi. I was normal. I talked our language, and then one day we did this event. Klal Yisrael did this event in City Field against the internet, and it ruined my career. Every day I would go to school, and everyone was all over the secular press. These religious Jews, look at them. They go like, "Oh, you one of those? Like you're Bin Laden? Like you're against the internet? Like we're gonna listen to you, you fanatic, you weirdo, you're a Taliban." And I faced that obstacle afterwards. There's no colored shirt. There's no color that's going to overcome an event in a stadium against the internet. So I had to develop a shir, which was my shir. My new first shir was a response to the question that I knew was in all their heads, and it's a heavy sugya. And this is what I explained to them: is that so you think we're crazy that we're against the internet? That we're imagine how much you can learn, and so we have so much information. It changed the world. It revolutionized knowledge, and you're cutting yourself off of all of this. Sounds crazy. So I said, why do you think we're doing this? So they tell you, we know why. What the land said. I said, why do you think we're against it? Of course, because there's inappropriate things on the internet. This is schmutz. It's not kosher. And I said, yeah, okay. And what's so bad about that? So they go, oh, you're going to say you become a mushchis and a lowlife, and you lose respect for women, and a pervert, all these stark words. I'm talking about how it's actually said. And I say, good, very good. That's what you think. And you know that you looked at all this schmutz, and you did all this stuff your whole lives, all you guys, you're all sitting looking at this, and you think you're normal. And you're nice guys. I like talking to you. So you know that you did all this, and it didn't ruin you. And you're not a weirdo, you're not crazy, you're not taking advantage of people, So you think we're crazy, that we're making a whole event to protect people from something that you do, and it didn't ruin you. So you think we're crazy. So I said, that's where you're wrong. You think that we're against the internet because it does huge things. It's calamities. It changes you. I said, you know why we're against internet? None of your reasons. You're right. You can look at it, and you still can be a normal guy, and you can go to school, and you can take tests, and you can pass, and you can do chesed, and you can be nice to people. So that's not why we're against it. What the internet does is something very, very tiny. That's all. Something very tiny. It makes you feel a little bit ashamed. That's all. You don't look in the mirror and say, you're a melech. You feel a little low. That's all. And they go, okay. For that, you rent City Field? I said, do you know what that little bit of low does? Children are born. I always say this. The first people up in any house are the little kids. They're bouncing off the walls. They're lebedik and alive. We call it wide-eyed. Everything, the world, that's shleimus. We start off shalom. We start off complete. And everything was with a bren. When something cool is happening, we're up at the balancing up, waiting for mommy and daddy to wake up. You can't get there fast enough. Every trip is, are we there yet? Everything is, mommy, this, how come, why? Curiosity, expansion. That's called shalom. You're complete. And then one day comes, the parents have to tell the kid, like, just because you're up doesn't mean mom and daddy have to go. You play in the living room and let mom and daddy sleep. Daddy has to go to shul in an hour. Mommy has to go to work, whatever. Go play and let us. And they tell the kids to go play and they lock their doors, the parents. And that works like that for 13 years, 14 years. And then all of a sudden, one day comes when the parents wake up and there's no noise. Who stole the kids? And what happened? No one stole the kids. They look in the room and here he is, he's in bed. Avi, school, shachas, what's the matter? You know that? I heard you, Ta. Right? And then Tata comes back in 5 minutes and goes, Avi, shachas, I'm up. I heard you. Come back 5 more minutes. Avi, you told me you're up. Ta, enough already. You're getting weird. I got it. What happened? For 12, 13, 14 years, the kids are up with the sun. And then after that, all of a sudden, they're the ones locking their doors from the parents. Do you know what happened? What happened is a little bit of shame. What keeps the engine of Lebedekite is innocence. The reason why kids can be on fire, the reason they can be Lebedek, it's because they feel tahar and pure. And tahara, I have no doubts. I don't think anything bad's going to happen. I don't think I'm going to fail because I'm good. The second that you feel guilty and ashamed, you lose the entire balance in your step. You don't believe it's possible. We don't understand the significance of Busha. Adam and Chava dancing in the Gan, what was meant to be, ended up not happening. For one reason, a little bit of Busha. It's a metaphor for all of life. Everyone in the world, we're all Adam and Chava. We all have a Gan that we're supposed to be dancing in. And instead of dancing in the Gan, we're curled up in a fetal position somewhere in some bushes. Maybe with thorns. It's not a comfortable bushes, but we'd rather be in there than the Gan. Why? Because we feel ashamed. They were Arumim Vayish Shoshu. And they felt ashamed, they went to hide in the bushes. Shame is what destroys our lives. That we don't know to the extreme. Nothing large. You're not looking for big things. Tiny little shame. The kid is the first kid out to recess. The kids are alive until the day they see something inappropriate. And from that moment on, their whole life is hesitant and reluctant. Little kids are wide-eyed. You know what happens after you have your shame? You learn how to roll your eyes. The opposite of wide-eyed is eye rolls. An eye roll is what? Is making fun of everything in the world. Because when you have dreams and you don't believe they'll ever come true, or you don't believe Kumpmir because I don't deserve it, I'm not innocent, I'm not pure. So then you get sarcastic and cynical. And anyone says something beautiful, you have to roll your eyes. It's so weird. When do you do an eye roll? Anytime you meet someone who's still innocent. That's what an eye roll is. An eye roll is a response to who you were 5 minutes ago. That's what happens. And all of that happened from Busha. Busha is the worst thing in the world. And this is why we made an event in City Field. Because the entire purpose of life is giggly, giddy people. There's no more beautiful sound in the world than the giggling of children. And there's no more sad sound in the world than the cackling, sneering laughter of teenagers after they've lost their busha. The crazy idea that there's one word called laughter, and you can say laughing. Laughter? There's no two things in the world that are more far apart than a giggle and a cackle. A giggle is an expression of total anticipation and excitement and just trust, to the whole optimism. Like you can't experience things fast enough. And the cackle is the attempt to turn the lights off on the entire aura in humanity. It means the world can never get dark enough to satisfy me. We're given a gun, and every day people are losing their gun. Why are they losing their gun? Because of this little tiny problem. And the most important war in the world is the war for the preservation of Tara, of innocence. Now, So people say like this, that it's very nice, I get it. But who are you fooling? Are you ever going to be able to stop that? Everyone is going to have that busha. There's not a Ben Torah in the world, in the best yeshiva, who's not being exposed. And it's true. We wish it wasn't true, but it's a very, my shir I just gave to now, I think it's a very powerful thing. I say it a lot. Maybe some of you heard it more than once from me already. Where I'm going to go is Chidushim, but that's an Aleph Beis in my Hashkafa of the world. It's very, very real. But it's not practical. It's philosophy. Practical people would say, what a wonderful shir. How it was possible. It'll never happen. Innocence is gone. There's no such thing as people be innocent anymore. It's a lost possibility. And that's true. So then what are they advocating? Instead of making higher walls and bigger shmiras and rules in yeshivas, no technology and no this, we should be putting all our koiches. Halavai, that would work. They'll even want that. The people who dafka want exposure. But let's take a Haliga person. There are the most noble version of the exposure argument would say it like this. I agree with you. If we could protect the innocence of people, I would gladly build big walls. But if it's never going to happen, and you're building big walls, then when the inevitable happens and the bocher sees whatever he sees, he's totally unprepared. You see, if we prepare him and we talk about things, then we're the one exposing him, and we're the one doing the hezek. So we should totally keep him wrapped up in plastic. You know, I would agree with you if you could do that for 120 years, but it's never going to happen. So if it's never going to happen, eventually he's going to see it. So then we should right away make a decision now to prepare the kid for this. Teach them how to deal with guilt, how to deal with shame, how to see things and survive it. There are tools for that kind of thing. That's their argument. Again, there are much worse arguments. People dafka want to destroy the frum world. I'm not going there. Maybe if I have time, I'll talk about that, because that's maybe the most important part of the shir, to be cognizant of the war to rob us of innocence and how they masquerade as a concern for us. Hopefully I'll get there. But the main thing I want to deal with is this nakuda. How do we respond to the sincere people who how do we defend ourselves? Why are we there's a lot of tsar that comes out, especially when I'm in Kiruv. Because I have a lot of coming to Bali Tshuva. They come to join from communities, and they're so excited, but they grew up with certain things, and yeshivas aren't accepting them because they're not ready to get rid of all of their things. We grew up like this. We grew up without technology. People whose whole life was this, to go and tell them they want the best for their kids. They bought into Torah. They came to conventions and weekends and seminars. They love Yiddishkeit, and they want to fit in. Then you tell them not taking your kid unless you get rid of every single thing in the world. And you can't have a smartphone, you can't have this. Costs a lot of time. Why is it so bad? Why aren't we preparing for this? Why? If it's going to happen anyway. So what's the answer? What's our defense? What is the Haredi world? What is our defense to someone who tells us, what are you bothering with walls? Everyone's going to see everything anyway. I think the answer is a very simple thing. When you hear it, it's like, I'm surprised that so many people make this argument. Well-meaning people. I've talked to Frum, Balapatim, well-meaning people who make the point, you know how much people are missing out on the being so much sum. I say, but it's dangerous. And they go, they're going to see it anyway. Teach them how to deal with it. I'm not saying fakers, sincere people. The answer, I think, is like this. Is that nobody really believes that people are not going to see everything. But what happens is, when people see things, when they're young, the younger you are when you see things, the busha and the shame that comes runs through your personality unchecked, and it destroys you. If I can delay the person's exposure to shame and guilt, if I could delay it until he makes a siyam on the Maseches Makas, small Masechta, makes a siyam Makas, then the boy feels pride. He worked a whole year outside of yeshiva, in his free time, Shabbos afternoon, instead of napping and playing, he had a chavrusa, and he finished Makas. So he feels like a gibar. And now when he has his first shame, he has a response to his shame. And there's another voice saying, yes, you feel terrible, but I finished Makas. You can't take it away. And the shame doesn't run through his whole personality. If you can delay it 2 more years, and he finishes Bava Kama, then when the shame comes, he goes, Bava Kama. Bava Kama is a big Masechta. It's a hard Masechta. And if you can make it to the point where he finishes Bava Basra or in Kleiner Seder, then when the shame comes, he'll deal with it. I feel gefährlich, but it's not going to knock me out because I have value. Shame is the feeling of worthlessness. The most important, we don't believe that we're going to protect anyone being Tamim forever. Maybe we could do it in a case, but that's not our hashkafa, what drives our society. What drives our society is the knowledge that the longer we can delay shame, we can build up a person with hatzlacha, that when the inevitable shame comes, he will survive it. But the secular world is being overrun by shame before the kid has done anything, and it destroys you, and you have no voice to recover with. It is the most simple truth in the world. I started with the question of, do we want our kids to be sensitive and present and experience the world and see all this beauty and wonder, or do you want to have a kid protected in a small little box with no airs, a hezek? There's something lost when you have a heel. The heel loses sensitivity. It's such a tragedy to lose all that beauty of the world and all the sensitivity, and because you want to protect them. I get it. We're making a good case for it, but why does it have to come at such a cost? The parasha, I want you to hear this word. The parasha starts off, Ekev Tishmon. If you will listen to I learned it up, if you learn the laws of the Torah like an Ekev, with walls, cold, unfeeling, nothing's going to derail you. We don't let anyone tell us what to do. We go like an unfeeling Ekev. You're going to keep the Torah like a machine. Well, you're Ekev Tishmon. You're going to build high walls, not let anything in, not let anyone embarrass Klal the front world with their tzum. If you will live like that, then the whole parsha ends off. You know what happens if you do that? Then kol mokom asher tidrach kaf raglechem. Every place that you will walk on your feet, that your feet will tread, will be yours. Then you'll be koiner to soil and you'll live in it. For many years I learned, and it's a nice poetic thing, that poets don't like to repeat the same word twice. So you called it Ekev in the beginning, at the end you call it Kaf Raglechem. Nice little diak. You walk. If you will have an Ekev, then every place that your foot will step will be yours. You're not going to lose out in your world. You're not going to curl up. If we build high walls, then you won't curl up, and you'll be able to live. That's how I learned it. Till I really thought about it, and I realized that it's not just a poetic thing. Ekev and Kaf Regel. It's very far from poetic. There's nothing in the guf that is more of an opposite than an Ekev than the Kaf Regel. The Ekev is the hardest part of the human being. The Ekev feels nothing. That's the beauty of the Ekev. It can go, it can step. There is no more sensitive part of the guf than the Kaf Regel. We tickle our little kids. When you want to tickle a kid, when do you tickle him? In the palm of his foot. It's the most sensitive part of the guf. Is that a fascinating thing? That in the foot, is the hardest part of the guf that feels nothing, and right next to it is the softest part of the guf. What do you make of that? Nice little mystical, Kabbalistic shtel? That's a very simple thing. You don't need any Kabbalah to shtel that. What's the relationship between the two? Do you know why the Kaf Regel is so sensitive? Do you know why the Kaf Regel feels everything? Because the Ekev accepts the impact of everything in the world. Because the Ekev is so hard that the Ekev steps and takes all of the impact, the Kaf Regel never has touched the ground. And the nail of the Kaf Regel is so sensitive because of the Ekev. My entire shir was built on a false premise. I had to give a shir, so I set up a structure that sounded interesting. Should I trade the ability to feel and to experience the world for thick walls that protect me? It's a nice dilemma. Everyone talks about this dilemma, but the dilemma is a lie. The way we say it is, thick walls, I understand. In Ekev, you feel less, but it's worth it. At least you survive. Or do we want sensitivity and presence and go out and smell the world, taste the world, and then it's risky, get clobbered, you might end up in the bushes. That's the dilemma. Presence and sensitivity and risking of loss of everything, or safety and trading off having a lower experience for a safe existence. The whole question's a lie. The only people who can, the way I said it was with the teva. Should I be out in the world experiencing the world, but it's so dangerous, or should I go and confine myself to the little teva and live in the teva, away from the mabul? What's the answer? The answer is exactly the opposite. Is that if you have choimos and walls, then the kids inside are still vibrant and alive, and they can be present, and they can go through life giggling forever. When you have an akev, then you have a kaf regel. The only present people are the people on the ark, on the teva. If you're in the teva, then you're present. If you live in the world, you'll lose your sensitivity. It's not choosing thick walls versus sensitive presence. It's the thick walls, it's the akev that creates the kaf regel. You only get it. There's nobody more feeling and more present and more subtle and more nuanced than a child who grows up in a house of walls. Because akevs create kaf regels. The kaf regel is the result, the product of an akev. We live in a teva because there's no truer view of the world than the view of a teva. The world where there is no busha. Ki chizat pri cheisha royach. When you strengthen the bolts of your gates, beirach banoyach mekirbeich, your children become gebenched. And I think this is our hashkafa. We don't believe there's a trade with the akev. An akev creates a kaf regel. And you see it. You see that the look on a Heimish kid. You see on the Haridish there's a look of innocence and whatever it is in the boys and the girls, it lasts twice as long and it's twice as tar because we excel at this. There's nothing lost. The college students are not more nuanced and sensitive, and they're not deeper feelings than us. I've seen thousands and thousands of kids over the years. And they have so many layers of protections. Their greatest skill is cackling and eye-rolling. Not everybody so mean they roll their eyes, but there are other ways, nicer ways, to demonstrate detachment and disillusionment. There's nothing more beautiful than the image of a 40-year-old man who can still giggle, of a guy in a base. You could picture Talmid Chacham in a base leverage giggling. You can see it. You can see Tara and Kedusha. And it's sad that I talk a lot, that there are so many from people who are insecure about our position. Baruch Hashem, we have a lot of kanoim who are very strong. But a lot of people in Hamoinam feel like an insecurity to argue this. Far from feeling insecure, this should be your go-to argument. This is the greatest demonstration of the wisdom of our Mahalach. Is the purpose of the world is to dance in the Gan. And there's not one step of the dance, not one step of the dance that's lost when you build high walls. Adarabba. The dance is that much more beautiful and free and uninhibited because of the Kedusha of the Torah. How much time do I have left? Anyway, what are we on? Have time? Okay, let me say something. Let me just add something else. I spoke over here. I'm going to tell you a mashal. It's a little bit outdated of a mashal, but I was thinking, how can I link the two things I want to tell you to make it into one share, because they're not so related. But during COVID, we had, there were two sugyas. I remember my daughter had Sheva Brachas. We got married during COVID. It was a COVID wedding. But there were two sugyas in the world going on at the same time. If you remember those times, the early days, one sugya was the sugya of COVID, and the other one was the early George Floyd Black Lives Matter riots. And I spoke with my daughter Sheva Brachas. I said, every single thing, you turn on the radio, you read the newspaper, all you're hearing is COVID, COVID, COVID. George Floyd, Derek Chauvin, right, the cop who put his, I can't breathe. That's all we heard. One story to the next story and back to the first story. I said, do you realize both stories have the same punchline? What was the punchline of the Derek Chauvin story? And what was the punchline of the COVID story? Was I can't breathe. But they're very different. There are two different ways that you can lose your breath. Life is vayipach va'apav nishmas chaim. Kadosh Baruch Hu breathed life into Adam and Chava and brought them to life. And this image of losing the bounce in your step and the wide-eyed look is the loss of your Nishmas Chaim. But it happens two ways. COVID is the symbol of the way that comes from inside. It's the part, you look at things, you feel guilty, you feel shame, and you get eaten up from inside. And from inside you lose your breath. But there's a far uglier way that you can lose your breath. And that is people from outside who need to step on our necks. You can be the healthiest person in the world. There's nothing lacking in you and your ability to breathe, but somebody can squeeze it out of you. The second reason for Shmira is, and for building big walls in our Kehillah, is because if the whole world was just sincere and about science and math and business, it wouldn't be so difficult. But there's two skills that the outside world has that are their best skills. And this is what you face when a child goes online. Two things that work in tandem. The greatest skills they have are shaming every beautiful thing in the world. Every traditional value, marriage, families, morality, religion, truth, to make anyone who feels any of these things feel guilty, weird, old-fashioned, racist, bigoted. And their other skill is, they're even better at this. As good as they are at making the people who are moral and good feel proud, feel ashamed, make proud people feel ashamed, the other skill is taking all the narishkeit, all the emptiness, all of the evil, and making it look like they're heroes. They take emptiness and make emptiness look like glory. And they take glory and they make it feel shameful. This is the skill. And this is where children are going. The entire existence of an Instagram and a TikTok and a Facebook has one purpose. For people with meaningless, empty, painful lives to convince everyone else how happy they are. Look at how perfect my life is. It is to convince people that their emptiness and their depression and their suffering is the most, you should be jealous of who I am. And they're so good at it. 5 minutes online is enough to take a kid and make him totally insecure and shamed about his holiness, and totally proud and totally jealous of all the other of all the people of emptiness. This is the other side of I can't breathe. The entire story of Purim. What is the story? This is the story we're going now in Molek and Zachor and Purim. The first Facebook, the first Instagrammer, the first influencer was Haman the Russia. Sending out every single day tweets and pictures of his bonim and his power and his guilt. He had every bracha in the world, and everyone had to know. And he needed everybody to bow in front of him. Everyone was kairim mushtachim Haman. That was old-fashioned language for likes and following, and I don't know what all the words are. Everybody was kaireh and mishtachav at the Haman. Except one person was not einay kaireh and mishtachav. There was one person who refused to buy it. And Haman was willing to destroy his entire nation. Because if you had one person who was not buying that the fancy meal you're eating and the pictures that you're a foodie and the car you're driving and the clothing you're wearing and say, oh my God, I wish it was you, then he ruins your entire lie. Because it's just a mask. And one person can ruin your mask. Masks only work if you have a universal buy-in. If one person looks at what you're doing and says, come on, who are you fooling? If one person won't bow, it ruins it for everybody. It's the same reason, now Addison, it's the same reason why does, I said this I think earlier, but why does Achashverosh call Vashti to come to the party, Bekeser Malchus? Who would do that? It's a queen. Okay. It's hard, you can imagine low lives, but Azai the king, to call the queen? Because what it is that if the entire purpose of a party is to make people who have empty lives feel free and happy and look at my life and party and be wild, and then in the wildkeit and the noise and the dancing you can forget who you really wanted to be. Parties are the best tool for silencing my real dreams. If you feel empty, throw a big loud party. The problem is, you can invest $1 billion at a party, you can invest $10 billion at a party, and it's worthless. You know why? Because if there's one woman in the room, one dignified Bas Melech, the whole party can't happen. If the guy has to sit there like this, little tatala, wait for her to leave, someone tell her to go home, the party's got to start. Because the image of a woman, the dignity of a Bas Melech, reminds you of the truth, and you can't pull off the lie. The lie can't be successful when you're facing the truth. The lie can only work in the darkness. So if the woman doesn't leave, so what's the other alternative? We have to degrade her. She has to lose her dignity. She has to be kaireya or mishtachavet to Haman. Haman has a lie he needs the world to buy. Everyone has to bow. We have a party to run. Everyone has to bow. The metaphorical bowing of Mordechai is the degradation of Vashti. If all the women will lose their dignity, then the party can go on. If Chazal Vashti doesn't come and Haman doesn't bow, so Haman said, and Mordechai doesn't bow. Haman says, I mixed up Haman and Mordechai. I'm Yitzchok. Haman doesn't bow. Mordechai doesn't bow. So Haman says we have to wipe out his whole people. Vashti doesn't bow. The Mulchan gets up and says we have to destroy Vashti. This is why Chazal say the Mulchan is Haman. Why do Chazal say the Mulchan is Haman? If his name was Haman, it's not like we're shamed or shy to use the word Haman. It says Haman a few times, no? Right? It's a lot of Hamans. One more time would have hurt somebody. Why does it call him Mulchan? Maybe he wasn't Haman. Chazal say he was Haman. What is Chazal saying? Chazal is saying Mulchans, the guys who need to degrade women, are the same as Haman. Every Mulchan's a Haman. The guy who needs the Jews to bow is the guy who needs women to bow. Because what a woman is to a man is what the Jews are to the world. We are the reminders of their dignity. And she is the reminder. So if he wants the party to be filled, she's got to bow. And if the party wants to be bowed, the Jews have to bow. It's the same story. It's a small microcosm and in the macrocosm. The war of men destroying women, the war of the world destroying the Kedusha and Torah of the Jews, the same story. Mulchan is Haman. We all know how terrible the Hamans are. The Mulchans are just as bad. It's the same drive, the same character, it's the same person. And this is what is going on in the world. The world's skill is on destroying the Bas Melech, and destroying the Git is nothing more threatening to the world than the wide-eyed giggling of a Jewish kid. And all of the investment and the power of TikTok and Instagram is worthless as long as there's one giggly kid walking down their block. And even worse if it's 4, 5, 15 kids in matching clothing on Yom Tov walking with their parents. It is the destruction of the entire investment of all these sites. Because one Mordechai, not Karim Mishtachave, this is what it means when it says that the Hatzalah on Purim happened from the Tinoike Shel Beis Rabbah. Because it is the children who don't break the survival of the innocence that allows the world to survive. Because without the innocence of our children and the kedusha of our children, the entire world will be able to go on with their party. And the world will be destroyed. But if we can preserve the innocence of our children, the Tinoike Shel Beis Rabbah will remain holy, and the Bnei Yisrael can remain holy, then the parties will stop in its track, and everyone will go home and sing Zmiros with their kids, do homework with their kids, and go shopping, go for walks, and the world will be like Yehudim Haisa Oirav the Simcha V'Sas, like the whole world will be. It all depends on the ability to keep the purity of children. We're not robbing the world of experience and hergish. The heel, the Akev, creates a kaf regel. If you want children to be a kaf regel, if you want your children to smile without any inhibition, to be all in and wide-eyed and excited and to giggle overflowing with joy, then you have to have walls. It is the wisdom of people. We're not against information. We love the world. We love knowledge. We love the gun. The only place you'll see the gun is safely behind walls. From there, you can see everything like nobody out there sees it. From the distance of behind the walls, we have a clarity and a depth that people who are sitting and holding it in their hands will never ever imagine. We'll be zoicha to share this or to bring the rest of the world out of their bushes back into our gan. Good luck.